And a good morning, Birds fans. It is a football Friday. Yeah, we're going to talk football, and it is Friday, but it is not leading into an Eagle game. It is coming out of an Eagle victory as they were victorious at Lincoln Financial Field last night in another imperfect win. They've had 2 wins. Both have been imperfect, but most important part of that is the win. The Eagles get out to 2-0 after taking out the Vikings last night down at the link where John McMullen spent how many hours? What time you get there? What time you leave?
Ooh, traffic was bad all over. There was a big accident on 95. Now, I don't have to go that way, but a lot of guys who do were complaining about that. It took them like an extra hour or so to get down there. Then from the Jersey side, boy, that 42, man, they got to get that done. They got to get that done. It's backed all the way up. It took typically it's a 25-minute drive in. Then you get some stadium traffic.
Right.
From 42 in South Jersey, and we're both South Jersey guys, and we have many listeners all over the country, and I'll get to this quick because they're bored. But it typically 25 turned into an hour, 5. I mean, and this is no accident. This is just the construction. They gotta wrap that up, Jody.
Yeah, I didn't ask you about your traffic. I asked you how many hours you spent at the stadium. So subtract the traffic to get there. Once you got there, and whatever time you pulled it, you jumped into your car after in the post midnight hours. Were you actually at the stadium yesterday?
Probably 11-ish.
Oh, 11-ish. Man, that's a long day.
11-ish plus they were kicking us out. That's another thing. They're closing the stadium, which they've never done before. And they gave us a number to call if we accidentally got locked in. They're desperately trying to get us out. I'm like, if you're desperately trying to get us out, stop these damn night games, or at least start them an hour or so earlier.
Call Roger Goodell on that one. Don't blame us. That's funny. Well, I'm glad at least a hell of a lot easier doing that kind of time after an Eagles victory rather than an Eagle loss, which it could have been last night. As I said, imperfect game. Johnny Mack, they recover an onside kick with 27 seconds to go. I'm sorry. Any game where you got an onside kick in the last minute that's less than a 1-score game is essentially hanging in the balance. And I can repeat the phrase I just used. They could have lost. I didn't say they should have lost, but they would have lost. All I'm saying is they could have lost. You're down 21 points with 2 minutes to go. No, you had no chance to lose the game. Last night, that was the case.
Of course, they could have lost, and that's most NFL games. You never got the feeling it was very much like week 1. I mean, they were... Yeah, it's certainly imperfect, but I never got the feeling that Minnesota was going to win that game. And you're right, if you get an onside kick, but you're an odds guy. What's the odds of getting an onside kick since they changed all the rules?
Less than 10%.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, of course, Devontae Smith could have bumbled the ball, but he's Devontae Smith. Yeah, I mean, look, they're 2-0. I can't believe some of the panic I heard around, both in the building and outside the building. It's hard to win these games. They're 2-0. They're winning in an imperfect fashion. The thing that impressed, well, number one, the offensive line. It is just unbelievable. I cannot believe for the life of me. Well, we always say this is a copycat league. Nobody copies the way the Eagles built. They're all worried about now you got to worry about the quarterback. I'm putting the quarterback aside. Obviously, you have to have a good quarterback. But as far as anything else, offensive line, defensive line, it's not sexy, and nobody's going to get excited about it. But that's how you win football games. And that's how you don't turn into Minnesota. It's got all the skill position people, and you look at the numbers. If you're a box score guy and you say, oh, my God, Kirk Cousins throws for 300 and I got 364 yards with 4 touchdowns. Whoop-de-doo. Who gives a crap? Justin Jefferson, 2 consecutive weeks over 150 yards. And that guy's phenomenal. Who cares? You can't block anybody. You're going to make some big plays because you have that. And that's the nature of the modern NFL. because they make it so easy for the offenses, or at least easier. It doesn't matter if you don't have the foundation. None of the furniture, none of the nice things, none of the accoutrements matter. And I'm not going to say nobody does it, but very few follow the simple process of I gotta make sure this is set before I think about the other stuff. And that's the advantage the Eagles have. And I go back to 2 points in the game, Jody. Here's the Vikings had one lead. They took a 7-3 lead on a TJ Hawkinson touchdown catch. And the Eagles answered with that 16-play, 75-yard drive where they ran it 13 times. 13 times. I remember talking to Shane Steichen about this. It was a Green Bay game. Same thing happened with Green Bay. They ran inside zone, inside zone, inside zone, inside zone. Kelsey was talking about it. It's got to be boring for the play caller. Inside zone, inside zone. They're not stopping it. Shane would say, F it. I'm going to be doing it. That's what they did yesterday. They got the light boxes. They're not moving out of the light box. DeAndre Swift, everybody's going to give him his flowers, rightfully so. He was phenomenal. I'm going to take some credit for that because I was ripping the running back room all week, and all of a sudden he has a career game, jokingly. But these holes, Jody, and you could see it at the game, I mean, they're massive. They're massive. And Boston Scott averaged 8 yards a carry before he had a concussion. They were just plowing people off the ball. So they answer there. And then late in the game, as you mentioned, they're up 27-7. The game, you think the game's over. It was essentially over. But Minnesota, makes a couple plays. They have the long touchdown to Addison. And they had another touchdown with a blown coverage, KJ Osborne wide open. And you say, ooh, it's 27-21. And then they answer again. 8 plays, 75 yards. So for all the talk about, oh, they're not passing the ball, they're not doing this, blah, 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 they answer. They answer. Now, you can't play like this against better teams. We'll see when they hit a better team. I thought it was going to be the Jets.
It still might be the Jets because
still
we're
might
talking
be.
about,
I know. I don't want
about the offense, and the Jets have arguably the best defense.
I don't want to get you riled up, but it's not going to be as difficult as it would have been with Aaron Rodgers. Is all I'm trying to say. I don't know.
Well, you were talking about the offense, so that's why I'm specifically comparing the Eagles' offense, run it down your throats, to the Jets' defense. It still could be a difficult.
Well, that's not the point. They're against Minnesota's showing all the light boxes. They said, "All right, we're going to run it down their throats." They can do the other stuff as well. They can use AJ Brown. AJ was upset not getting the football. That's going to be a story. Devontae Smith, and actually he had a couple big receptions yesterday. They haven't gotten Dallas Goedert going. I get all this. At some point, they'll get the passing game going. That's what I'm trying to say. They can. That's the difficulty in handling the Eagles. They can toggle back and forth. All right, they had a nice blitz package early. They had the Eagles sort of on their heels offensively. Let's just run it. Maybe next week against Tampa Bay, it's something different. Let's just throw it. It's a nice sticking luxury to have. And we're at 19 out of 20, Jody. 19 out of 20 when Jalen Hurts is on the field, the Eagles win the game in the regular season. That's a pretty big stinking sample size. 19-1. 19-1, and the sky is falling.
That's a nice winning percentage. 95% winning percent. That's pretty damn good, if you ask me. It was reminiscent of 2 years ago when the Eagles struggled out of the gate. Sirianni's first year, the offense isn't clicking, and he said, we need to make 2 changes. Number one, I'm going to hand this off to Shane, see how that goes for a while. Number 2, we're going to just have to rely on what we do real well. We got a really good blocking offensive line up front. Let's try and run the ball down the other team's throats. And they did just that and turned their season around and ended up making the playoffs. When in doubt, go with the big guys up front, run it down the other team's throat. They did it in 2020. They did it again last night. It is really something that's very advantageous to have in your back pocket. When in doubt, if you're passing games, having struggles, issues, whatever else, yeah, all right, fine. Let's just go back to pounding it right up the middle. And that's exactly what they did. And you're right. Swift had holes that he could go through. Now, he ran through some tackles and he made some really smart moves and cuts and the like. I don't know if you can even say that he Wally pipped the Eagles RB1 from week one. I think he better be the RB1 next week off that kind of a game.
He's earned it for 1 week, and we'll see from there. He's definitely earned it for 1 week. He's definitely got more explosion than the other backs. So that part of it is, but you start talking about he had, I think, 28 carries. That's rare for the Eagles. That's a lot of work for a running back in today's game. And he's not typically known as the Derrick Henry type who's, going to carry it that many times. I think it was, again, he had a great game, but I don't think you're going to see that consistently moving forward. You're going to have better defenses. You bring up the Jets. Tampa Bay is much better. You're going to have better defenses. It's going to be you're going to have to go about things a different way, and they're going to have to get AJ going and Dallas going, and Devontae's already going, but they're going to have to get. I'm not saying they're not going to need that stuff because they most definitely are, but I think it's impressive that they always answer. Like I said, technically, yes, technically they had a chance to lose that game, and they answer. They always answer. Not always. They didn't answer in the Super Bowl, but
they didn't have a chance to answer because there's no time left on the clock.
And the regular season, again, 19 out of 20 with Jalen Hurts on the field. They answer a lot. Yes. I'll say that.
They surely do. And the other thing that I come out of the game last night slightly concerned is they get nicked up. More injuries last night. Yeah. No one should be surprised that Avonte Maddox goes down because Avonte Maddox always goes down, but so does Quez Watkins. They came into the game banged up. And, a little tip of the hat to Nick Morrow. I thought he played well last night. None of us
knew the green dot, too.
None of us knew for sure how much he was going to play. He played a ton. Christian Ellis almost didn't see the field. And, oh, by the way, Morrow made plays, including a great coverage on Jefferson on a play across the middle, running stride for stride with Jefferson, knocking the ball out. Kudos to him, coming off the street, gets cut, can't find a job, got to come back to the practice squad, jumps in last night, plays real well. But the fact that the Eagles have lost several players now nothing long-term other than the Kobe for 4 weeks with his injury. We don't know how long these guys are going to be out. They were dipping pretty good into their bench, showing a little depth last night, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it long-term. Luckily, as you mentioned, I mean, Boston got a concussion. James didn't play. James Bradbury, he'll be back for Tampa. Very confident in that. So, as you mentioned, the only one long-term you're concerned about is Avonte. We don't know. We'll see. He has a history. He plays very physical. He's a very small guy. I think that's part of the problem. He throws himself around. But that's part of what makes him a good player. So it's catch-22.
Yep.
And anytime you talk about a speed guy and a hamstring, and that's what Quez Watkins is, that could be an issue. They got lucky with injuries last year, and the luck is turning a little bit, at least early in the season. Look, they all held up relatively well under the circumstance. And by that, not just Morrow, Terrell Edmonds made a big play. He made the play on Jefferson, the touchback that was real impact on the game. Josh Jobe, he got beat a couple times, but he held up pretty well, especially considering the receivers on the other side. But yeah, you don't want to see those guys long term, especially against the better teams on the schedule when they get to the schedule. So health is going to be a big part of it. And how healthy can they be?
You can't predict it, and that's
Yeah.
why you have to have some faith in your bench. You have to have guys that, yeah, you don't want them coming in week 2 and having to play till week 14, but you got to hold down the fort for a couple of weeks. You want guys who can do that. And last night, the guys coming off the bench, I think, did a pretty good job. I give them their credit for that, because much like last year, and you tell me all the time the Eagles hate when you use the word luck. Last year, they were lucky. They didn't get hurt. This year they're having a little bad luck. They are getting hurt. You can't handicap and or project that. We make our predictions every single week here on the show. We try and get it as close as possible. It's educated guessing. That's all there is. There's a little luck involved with that. Well, there's luck involved with injuries as well. And last year the luck went the Eagles' way. So far this year the luck has gone against the
Yeah.
Eagles. And guess what?
Speaking
They're
of,
still 2-0.
before the game, there were 2 key players for Minnesota we were keeping an eye on, Christian Darrisaw and Marcus Davenport, and they were both active. And we said, "Oh, all right, maybe this is going to be a little bit more difficult." And between the 90 minutes between you have to announce your inactives, Darrisaw tweaked his ankle, didn't play at all. Davenport tried to go. He played 4 plays and had to tap out. Even in that instance, you never know. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to gauge who's going to be 100%. But the guys who had to fill in, I thought, did yeoman work. I will say, they weren't spectacular, but I think they were fine for the most part.
Yeah, Josh Sweat made the one great play that caused the
Josh Sweat
fumble.
was unbelievable in that game.
He's a beast, and I think he does get a little underrated, because it just seems like somebody jumps up and enjoys. That's a year.
Speaking of injuries,
this year,
Jody, I never saw somebody get carted off from getting destroyed on one rep. Josh Sweat. I feel bad for the kid. Oli Udo's the name of the Vikings backup left tackle. Got carted off with a significant knee injury, is what they described it as. He just got destroyed on the rep and fell backwards awkwardly. It's Josh Sweat is. I just saw somebody complaining about the Eagles' pass rush late. Were you not watching Josh Sweat? Josh Sweat was destroying that team. He had 5 quarterback hits, but he had 1 sack. So that's what they looked at. By the way, it was a strip. It was the strip sack that gave him the ball at the 7-yard line.
Right, gift touchdown.
Yeah, yeah, he was unbelievable.
He was. And oh, by the way, you can harken back to the QB show. Kirk Cousins got killed last night. And you got to give it to him. He hangs in there. He takes the hit. He delivers the football. Another primetime loss, and we'll certainly harp that. But you got to give the guy some props, because that Minnesota line is not good, and the Eagle defense got after him. Could have used an extra sack or 2, but he was on the ground after almost every ball he threw.
I tried to tell people, but that's what I'm talking about, the primetime stuff. So all Eagles fans who say that, and everybody says it, it's not just Eagles fans. Are you going to blame that loss on Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, you can't.
I mean, that kind of stuff just drives me nuts. I mean, the primetime, he can't win primetime game. Like everybody else sucked. He's trying to lift that team. He's trying.
I used last night as an example. The Jalen Hurts you just told me. Jalen Hurts is 19 of 20 in games he starts. Jalen Hurts the reason the Eagles won that game last night?
No.
It cuts both ways.
Sometimes
a quarterback takes grief in a game where he plays well. Sometimes a quarterback will get credit when he doesn't play well. Yeah, you got to take it game by game and break it down if you want to have the truest evaluation. Oftentimes it just gets lumped in as W's and L's for quarterbacks.
Oh, it always does. And that's why I say wins and losses aren't a quarterback stack. And I know that I just used them. The Eagles are part, but what I talk about, because there's a lot of criticism of Jalen this morning because of the numbers, and he's not getting the passing game going, or at least I've seen pretty significant criticism in certain places, not all places. And to me, I always said, I go back to Indianapolis last year, Houston last year. The Eagles had some Arizona last year. The Eagles had some uneven performances, let's call that way offensively. But he always makes a play. Always make. Talked about it after New England. The relentlessness. The you think you got him pinned in. You think you got, and all of a sudden he converts a first down out of nowhere, and you get these long drives. Um, that to me is where Jalen Hurts even kind of elevates, even when he's not playing well. I always compare it to the old school starting pitcher in baseball. Find a way to grind through without your best stuff. That's what he does. Um, but yeah, Cousins. I only bring it up because it's such a narrative, and it's such a dumb narrative because, like I said, what is he, a vampire? What, he can play when the light is out, but he can't play when the and then again you pick up the box score. 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, 125 passer rating. He's got no offensive line. And people are going to blame that loss on Kirk Cousins. He's got no offensive. And by the way, they turned now he turned it over once, and that's a fair criticism because that guy's 35 years old. He should know when the pass rushes come and take care of the football. But the pass rush is always coming. But they turned it over so many times. Alexander Madison. Oh, awful.
Yeah. But they could cut their Pro Bowl running back because they're turning it around. Yeah, right. The Vikings have gone bad precipitously from where they were last year. So Eagles get a win against what I think by the end of the year will be a lesser squad. Not an awe-inspiring win, but they did some really good things. We're breaking it down for you here on Birds 365. Mac and Mac. We are getting one of our faves up next from 33rdteam.com and does his great stat pack for JAKIBSports.com. Our buddy Paul Dunwich up next on Birds 365.